joining us today. Thank you for making time available to come to City Hall and to make yourself available to give us a bit of an update and to answer questions from the committee and other councillors. We did invite all the councillors. We did tell all our colleagues that you would be here, so anybody that would be interested in learning more about the task force and ask questions will have the chance to do so. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to appear in front of a committee called the Affordable Housing Committee. That's a good move by the City of Toronto to have such a committee. If I can start on my slide presentation, I will first of all tell you about the task force members. In addition to myself as chair, you see the other names: Ed Clark, Blake Hutchison, Brian Smith, former president and CEO of Woodgren Community Services, is with me here today, as is Phil Gillies, who is the secretary of the task force that was appointed by Mayor Tory. The task force purpose and scope to advise the mayor on how to strengthen and support the delivery of housing to Toronto community housing residents. You probably know that the mayor has asked that I would report to him on an interim basis in July, and that the end of year would be the final report. I've already submitted one report, which I think will be going to City Council with the item on the waiting list, the centralized waiting list transfer to the City of Toronto from the TCHC Connections organization. And in that document we make a couple of suggestions that will help make the waiting list, I would hope, more credible, more useful to the city in trying to meet the housing needs of the population. The scope is there in 4 parts. I'll go through each one of them. The operations and service delivery: examine alternative means providing safe, affordable housing with appropriate supports. Review and assess operational administrative structures, including service delivery models and mechanisms, and in conjunction with the findings from the city's service manager assessment, gauge TCHC's relative strengths and weaknesses. I might add that report, which is being done by an outside consultant, I understand is still not available. Originally I was told it would be available around the end of this month. I'm told it might take a little bit longer. But it'll obviously be an important part of the input for us. The task force to recommend whether or not changes are required to improve current operations and service delivery. I would certainly hope that our July report could say, look, there are a number of things that need to improve the lives and living conditions for people in this housing, and that they're actually underway, as opposed to just making recommendations on how we think they can be improved. I'm hoping that we'll also have some that we'll be able to point to as well underway. In the next section of the scope of our work, partnership and innovation, we just recently met with the not-for-profit and co-op housing sector. We're going to meet with commercial developers later this week. All of this to try and examine new, innovative and operational approaches and partnerships to strengthen delivery of housing to the residents, to review innovative structural and organization models adopted by other jurisdictions to deliver housing that may be applicable in the Toronto context, and the task force to recommend potential alternate service delivery models for residents with distinct needs, i.e. vulnerable, seniors, families, number of people who have mental health issues, as well as consideration of ownership models, including public-private partnerships. When it comes to capital revitalization and new development, examine TCHC's current and past capitalization, revitalization, and new development activities to ensure the most effective approaches are being utilized. Consider alternate options and innovative approaches, including potential private and public partnerships. And the task force to assess whether changes should be made to TCHC's current approach, including the role of revitalization and development within TCHC's existing mandate. And included in that is what TCHC calls the reset, which is the 10-year plan to deal with the $2.6 billion that are needed to bring the buildings that are in need of repair, that are in backlog conditions or are well on their way to backlog conditions, up to a reasonable fair state of repair. And we all know the issue there over the one-third. The city has put in its money. I don't see the province or the federal government having put checks on the table, and there wasn't a lot to look at in the budget, but nevertheless, either budget, but nevertheless we are looking at ways that that might eventually happen. And finally, there is governance. And this will come more in the second half of our mandate. Examine and provide recommendations on governance models for TCHC based on outcomes and recommendations identified by the task force. Options that could be considered. Status quo, turn it over to the city and have it function as a city department. Devolve to other housing providers, other social housing organizations, or a blended approach of different options. All of these are up for consideration. In determining recommended changes to governance, the task force will consider the results of the reviews for operational and service delivery, partnerships and innovation, capital revitalization, and other inputs as appropriate. In other words, everything will come into play here as we deal with the governance issue. Current and planned city TCHC initiatives. As I said a moment ago, we're waiting on the city service manager assessment report. TCHC is engaging with tenants in terms of the development of its strategic plan and how to go about the various capital repairs that are needed, and quite well recognizes that there needs to be full consultations with the tenants in this. The Capital Revitalization Economic Impact Study, which came out a couple of weeks ago and was flagged by the mayor and by the president of TCHC to identify and quantify the direct and indirect induced impacts of the spending associated with capital spending and revitalization. There are also some previous reports that we have taken into consideration and will continue to do so. One that comes from this committee, Madam Chair, putting people first, and plus the reports of the Auditor General and the Ombudsman. There is also an undertaking by the province at this point in time into the long-term assisted housing strategy, and we will be consulting and inputting that in terms of how it might benefit further tenants who are part of Toronto Community Housing. Well, finally, the task force is divided into two committees when it's not meeting as a total task force. One of them is development and finance. This is looking at the funding and capital revitalization, particularly dealing with, again, the $2.6 billion, as indeed mortgage refinancing, and new affordable housing developments also come into play for that committee. And the governance and operations, the waiting list reforms, which we have put a report into the mayor, which is forming part of that documentation going to City Council. Safety and security, a big area of concern to us. It's something that travels around the different buildings in different parts of Toronto. I've heard a great deal about of concern from residents who want to live in safety and security, but there are threats to that. So we are looking very carefully into that, as indeed we are maintenance. Tenant relations, tenant communications, health and community services, and different options, as I pointed out a few moments ago, on governance operations. Work to date, well, we have weekly meetings of both committees. One meets on Monday mornings, the other meets on Friday mornings. We've established an online presence, email and phone numbers if anybody wants to make a presentation to us. I've had a number of meetings. I think I'm up to almost half of the City Council in terms of one-on-one meetings. Some of you at the table I've met with. And we'll continue to do that. We'll also meet with members of the board of Toronto Community Housing. We put out to them a similar kind of suggestion if they wish, and I hope to meet with the board in its total context sometime soon. Must have visited about 50 buildings to this point in time, and we'll continue to visit a lot more in different parts of the city and different kinds of accommodation, and a number of meetings with stakeholders and tenants. Finally, I want to mention community meetings. These are full-blown public meetings where people will get an opportunity to come in and tell us what their concerns are in 4 different parts of the city. The first one being at the 519 Community Center, so it will cover downtown area. Scarborough Civic Center follows Maynell Avenue in Etobicoke, and finally the Don Mills Public Library. But while these are the big public meetings, that we will invite not only the residents of Toronto Community Housing, but we'll invite the community in general to attend. We would be having numerous other meetings with tenants and tenant groups throughout our period of time of the task force. So that's us, and I'm happy to take any questions. I guess, given that we are early on in our endeavors, I don't have an awful lot of answers as to what we're going to end up doing. It'd be premature to give many answers to that, but I'll certainly try to be of help as much as I can. And if I can get further suggestions or comments from any of you that would help us in our work, that would also be a bonus. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you for your presentation, Senator. I think before we proceed to questions, I just want to thank you once again for all the work that you're doing on top of your senator duties and doing this work for us at no extra salary or anything like that. But we know that you know the city quite well as a former mayor and as a continuation of the work that you've been doing in the Senate as well around poverty and housing issues as well. So thank you, and thank you, your members of your committee, equally supporting you and doing a lot of good work in the task force. So thank you all. So now questions from the committee. Councillor McConnell?
Yes.
Oh, Deputy Mayor McConnell.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I certainly want to echo all of that, and to just a slight feedback that many of the tenants in my ward are very excited when they see you at their doorstep and in and around their buildings, and I think that's been very useful and will continue to be useful. I wanted to ask you a specific question, which you may or may not yet have an answer for, doesn't matter. On the mortgage refinancing, given the federal announcement that in fact we can remortgage at the lower interest rate at this point, which will be very helpful. But one of the things that I wondered if you are exploring in the past, it has been CMHC that's kind of led that. We've got, you know, this large number of mortgages that are up for renewal. What's your best offer? And I wondered if you thought that perhaps combining some of our mortgages, not like with separate mortgages, but combining them for a mortgage rate from an institution might have a better bang for the buck, especially given the numbers today. So that's all new, and I wondered if you would just sort of address for a moment any of the things that you heard coming out of that announcement and where you think we might seek further answers, not have further answers, but might look at what we might do with that.
We are in hot pursuit of the matter.
Yes.
Since it was published, page 278 of the budget document.
Yes.
And we're fortunate on the task force to have a banker in Clark.
Yes.
And he has been particularly helpful in the pursuit of this matter. So we are in pursuit. We have the city manager's office part of this discussion because it does involve city finances. And of course, TCHC, the treasurer of TCHC, Jason Morell is particularly involved with this. So we are pursuing it.
So, Senator, there is also a number of co-ops and nonprofits that are in a similar situation covered by that legislation. So I know that you've been looking at TCH, but in terms of the whole city portfolio and the affordable housing portfolio, it might be helpful when you're looking at those things if you just keep that in mind, and perhaps through another avenue we might be able to arrange kind of combining our troops, if you think of it that way. I think we've got quite a lot of unit numbers in the city of Toronto, and that's a good place to start refinancing. So thank you.
You're welcome. The document, the budget document, didn't specifically say TCHC, but it does talk about nonprofit social
Yes.
housing and co-ops, and so I would imagine that
Yeah.
a number of others. But I think there's no doubt that given the size of the portfolio TCHC has and the number of mortgages that are at high interest rates, this is an important measure.
Yes, and I'm just suggesting that outside of that, we have some fellow travelers that could help as well. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Councillor Cho?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, Senator Eagleton, thank you so much coming out to our City Hall and make a good presentation. I could only repeat before I ask any question, Senator and your team using marvelous work, excellent work, and I'm referring to the tenants living in my ward. The other day, about a week ago, your team came to visit us. And so many people told me, and even afterwards, it's great that Senator actually came to our ward and listened to them, and you listened to their questions, and they feel you did a marvelous job. I don't repeat what they say. As a city councillor, I got appointed to the Board of Directors TCHC recently, and it's my view, it seems in TCHC, they have two cultures, two-tier cultures, one for senior staff and the other for the tenants. And whether they are senior staff or frontline workers, they have a job because they are serving tenants. So tenants are the masters. And when I say two-tier senior staff, they get big promotion under the name of a bonus. It's no secret, it's in the newspaper everywhere, so I'm just referring to newspaper. Like 20% of the salary as a bonus, and $700 car allowance monthly, and yet the tenants I work with, they say, you know, when we call the office, they do respond 2-3 days, sometimes 2 weeks. So what was the problem? And they say, you know, the hot water, it comes and it becomes cold water immediately. We complain, they don't respond. It takes a long time. So my question to Senator Eagleton, how we could get rid of this cultural problem. After all this study and research, the governance will be changed. It's a real cultural problem. Is any room that the TCHC should come under the City Hall right here? They have a monthly meeting, no, every other month when there are so many problems. And there's so many confidential meetings or the decision made in the confidential. There's a lack of transparency, accountability, and so many problems. So I know it's too early, but I'd like to hear, Senator, where we're heading, whether it's going to be a big change at TCHC?
Well, it is too early. It is premature to say what kind of changes we will recommend. Of course, we can only make recommendations at the end of the day to the mayor, and then it's up to the mayor as to what then proceeds from there to city council. But we're going to look at all of the different options. I must say one thing about the staff at TCHC, and I found this also when I visited the buildings in your constituency. I think there are many people out there on the front lines of that organization that are doing as good a job as they possibly can.
And they're working very hard. They feel very strong about helping their tenants in those buildings. These are perhaps superintendents, cleaners, people like that. Because I've met a number of them, what I would call frontline workers, and I think a lot of them are working very hard on behalf of the residents.
Just one more question, madam.
1 minute.
Okay. Yeah. Eventually, some of the tenants, they could become the homeowners if they do a good job, so that the city could get rid of subsidies if the tenants are getting subsidy, but they're doing a good job. I'm talking about more housing in the community, not big apartment complex.
Well, your committee and city council, as part of the Putting People First report, did recommend that a number of scattered houses, in fact, go into home ownership of the people who occupy them. That matter, I think, is worthy of proceeding, because I think home ownership where it can be made available is a good idea, but there are still an awful lot of people that can't quite make that grade to be able to afford home ownership. And there is a need for the city to provide the good, decent, affordable accommodation for them. But yes, I think your scattered housing program is a good one and should be proceeded with. And there may be other opportunities as well, as part of one of the words that's used in our terms of reference is innovation. And we'll certainly be looking for innovation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cho. If the members of committee are okay, Councillor Fletcher would like to say a few words, and I think.
Oh, yes, it has.
Thank you.
A question, thanks, we didn't ask the visitors to go first.
No.
I don't mind going at any time, Madam Chair.
We're very flexible in this community. We're very innovative.
Of course, very creative and
Out of the box
innovative.
thinking.
That's why you have this fantastic task force, and I think I just added my voice to those who are saying thank you very much for taking this on. Having been the president of City Hall for many years, you're very familiar with affordable housing city style, so I can't think of anybody better to undertake this review. So thank you for adding it to many of the things you do. You said you are available online. Is that a website or an email address? And forgive me that I haven't got that.
Phil?
We'll announce it here.
Yes, toronto.ca/tch.task.
It's
Oh, it's on the Toronto website.
Toronto.ca is the Toronto website
/housing.
TCH-task.
We'll get that too.
No.
We better get this
Let's just say
clarified.
it's not the easiest email address, the
No.
easiest way to get to you.
We'll get you the
might
information.
find something more simple and then it would forward to that. Might be a good idea. If I can understand it, might be others can't either. Yeah, thank you. Page 7 of your report, and it's great to have this overview. You indicate determining recommended changes to governance. The task force will consider the results of the reviews for operational service delivery partnerships and innovation, capital revitalization, and other inputs. These are the reviews that you've mentioned previously on the previous pages: operations and service delivery, partnerships, and innovation. Are there any other reviews? Is that the city manager's review?
Well, yes, the review on the assessment, the service manager assessment review, we are waiting on. It is particularly important because it examines TCHC's functions, determines whether it meets them or doesn't meet them, and these are quite important for us to have as input. It's good background material. But we also are using as background material the reports that were done by the Ombudsman and by the Auditor General, because they deal with issues such as the seniors. I think we all remember the Al Gosling situation. The Ombudsman reported on that kind of problem with seniors. I think we need to deal with that. The Auditor General has reported on a number of financial issues, including the letting of contracts, etc. So all of those things
are going to come into play.
And that would be page 8, the city service manager assessment. Is that the city manager or that's doing that review? Who's the lead on that?
It's, I think it is the city manager is the lead on it, and it is, unless Sean Gadden can answer the question. It's being done by an outside consultant.
You have some assistance here to
Yes.
help you.
Councillor, the review is being done, it's a service manager review.
Okay.
So it's being headed by Shelter Housing and Support Administration. The city has a relationship with Toronto Community Housing that is through the shareholder direction that comes via the city manager's office, but then as a funder and a regulator through the Housing Services Act, and through that act, the service manager is Shelter Housing and Support. The name of the organization conducting the review is OCG Consulting.
Thank you. And then on the next one, TCAC Strategic Plan Tenant Engagement. Who is the lead on that?
That's TCHC.
They are, and which
TCHC.
department in TCHC? Do you know?
Facilities management.
Strategic plan.
Strategic plan.
Okay, thank you. And then the last one, TCH Capital Revitalization. The lead on that, is that
TCHC, and that was done with an outside consultant.
It's the president. It's Greg.
And it's under the president's jurisdiction.
Well, just in case I'm not here with Mr. Spearns here, the tenant engagement, is there a consultant for that?
No, told not.
So
No,
it's yeah?
but there has been a recent tenant survey done of all of our tenants, and we've just got the results of that and are analyzing them right now.
That's through resident services?
That's done again through strategic planning.
Okay. And just the last page 9, the governance and operations, the Premier has created this position to create hubs. I don't know if you're thinking that there could be places where that hub model, which might include schools, strong community housing, would be something that would be possible to introduce that idea of hub. That is, you thought about that at all, or have you been in touch with her special advisor, Karen Petrie, on the hub model idea?
Not to this point in time. We've had a meeting with the province, however, and we will be having further discussions with them, and we'll get into that
Maybe.
possibility. Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Any speakers? Oh, sorry. So we have a deputant. So I'll ask Ishapat Henry. Senator, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our committee.
Thank you.
5 minutes.
Okay. My name's Pesha Pat McKendry. I've been a TCHC resident, and I'm very happy to hear that most people are calling us residents instead of tenants. I just have a couple of suggestions and comments to make. From my perspective, I don't, as far as planning what to do with all the buildings and complexes, I feel that there shouldn't be any privatization, and even private housing groups taking over, because TCHC is non-profit. I'd like to make a suggestion about saving money. which is very important. We hire, like I said, I've been living at the Hydro Block, which is downtown, behind the art gallery. Been living there for 30 years, and I'm not exaggerating what I'm about to say. Every time we have a contractor doing work, there is always mistakes, and I'm not exaggerating. I am not exaggerating, for 30 years. And what happens is that they have to come back and redo it, and they still don't do it in a professional manner. And what happens could be a year later, whatever they're working on could fall apart, and then they have to rehire other contractors. And sometimes it's the same contractor that they hire. So I think that this is something that should be seriously looked at as to who's doing the work. I don't think it's right that they choose the lowest. Because when you choose the lowest, you're not getting professional work. So this is my experience for 30 years about who TCHC hires for contractors. As far as Councillor Cho, excuse me. I am so happy that you brought this up, because I have it down on my notes as something to speak about.
The culture inside TCHC.
The two groups within TCHC. Top management and the residents. Two different cultures. Two different cultures. When you look at the reports, you hardly see any mention of residents included in there. And what also happens is that, I'll tie this into lack of communication. When you look at the agenda for board meetings, what they've started doing is putting the item under for information. Therefore, there is no report attached to the item, and therefore residents cannot make deputations.
Ms. McKendry, I'm going to have to ask you to start wrapping up.
Okay, I will do that now. I just want to, the definition of affordability. TCHC says there's affordability. Well, what is the definition of affordability for TCHC residents? My interpretation is that they pay 30% of their rent. So when you hear, yes, there's affordable housing, it's not. It's the market value of that particular area. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Any questions of the Deputant? Deputy Mayor McConnell?
Yes, sorry, I just had a clarification that I wanted to make sure I had. So your issue at the beginning of your discussion was not to spin off things into private hands, but I'm assuming that you had no problem spinning off properties into nonprofit housing cooperatives as we did in the past, or to nonprofits like Wood Green or HouseLink or PAL or anything.
Yes.
Am I correct? That
Absolutely.
you would be fine with that.
Especially, if I may add, for vulnerable tenants.
Right.
Because there are many vulnerable tenants, And TCHC does not know how to handle them. They do not have staff to handle them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher?
Yes, just on your observations about the repairs that get done. And do you think there's an attitude at times of contractors that they don't have to do a very good job because they're at Toronto Community Housing?
Yes, exactly. And they're not encouraged. You don't see anyone, and you keep hiring the same contractors.
So there's no consequences for a bad job,
Exactly.
and you're not off of a list anywhere.
No.
So, yeah, that is, you just kind of half-done jobs, or is it a management issue, or just managing a contractor in small fixes?
Small fixes, the supers do it. The staff, the lower level staff, I hate to use that, they're fantastic. Okay?
So maybe the system is just so big that it's hard to ensure that the toilet that needs to be completely replaced, that all the wall tiles are actually put back.
Yeah.
That it's hard for whoever is managing to ensure the quality management.
Exactly. And emails are, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
go ahead, sorry.
So emails are sent. And we'll look into this.
So once there's a problem, the system to fix it doesn't work.
No. No.
Thank you, I have noticed that myself on many occasions.
Thank you. Any further questions? I do have a couple of questions myself. So would you suggest that maybe having some feedback directly from the tenants as these repairs are done would be an important step forward to fix the
Yes.
mechanism?
Yes. What I would suggest is that when a contractor does work, that the residents, there should be a questionnaire. And the residents can give their opinion.
So I'm happy to let you know that that is being implemented.
Oh, very
It's about time, right?
Thank you. Yes, it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, speakers, members outside the committee? No? No speakers, members outside the committee? No? Councillor Cho?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank our Mayor John Tory for striking this task force on housing. And as I said earlier, I really appreciate the task force headed by Senator R. Eagleton. When our writing our word, they actually visited 3 different sites. I was really impressed. And then not just visiting, talking to tenants and the frontline workers, and they saw how the housing community is managed. And I was very, very happy and impressed. And all the people say, Senator doing excellent work. I can only repeat that. And I like to thank the team. I'd like to ask all my colleagues, city councillors, please do contact task force. They need our input. If we don't bring our input, they could do only so much. And the task force, they spend almost a whole afternoon in my work, visiting 3 different sites, and then on busy schedule still, they sat down with me at the community center and listened to us and raised all kind of very important questions. So I'd like to thank Senator and your team. Thank you.
Other speakers? Seeing none. I I move a motion to receive and once again thank the task force for its work. As we know, we have many challenges in the City of Toronto on the housing portfolio. We have this issue with TCHC, the backlog, the governance issues. We have 90,000 people on a waiting list to get more affordable housing. We have issues on how to manage our waiting list. So there's different things that need to be tackled into what I usually call the housing ladder. And that's what we do here in this committee. But TCHC, it's quite a beast of its own, if I may say. And having a task force outside City Hall and outside the board of TCHC that can go into the issues at TCHC and help us bring with some ideas that they are bringing from tenants, from organizations that you're talking to, from some of the councillors here, I think will be a valuable work. Many times I said, you know, we took the low-hanging fruit, put people first, we addressed some of these issues, and now we need the second part of that, and that's how I see the work that the task force has done, and we're all anxious to continue to collaborate with you until you have the report, but we very much see this as a very strong component of all the work that we're doing here in addressing one of the important issues in the housing file in our city. So thank all the members of the committee for the work that you're doing. And I think I can speak for all the members of this committee and my council colleagues that if you need anything from us, our doors are always open, and just let us know how we can facilitate the good work that you're doing. So thank you. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you so much. Carries.